I now like to open the next part of the session. So that is actually reading of Most Venerable Katugurunde Nyananda Thero's Concept and Reality book. I cordially invite someone to start from where we have stopped.
Yeah, Bante. Let me share the screen first.
Yeah.
Hope everyone can see the screen. We stopped at the page 89, so let me start from the place where we stopped the last week or week before.
Right.
Limitations of the dialectical approach. This sutta, which brings out the early Buddhist attitude to sunyata, has a moral for the dialectician himself. The history of Buddhist thought bears witness to the fact that there is a danger lurking behind the dialectical skill to blow up concepts. The dialectician might sometimes develop a complex of his intellectual superiority and proceed to demolish indiscriminately all concepts and theories around him, subjecting them to ridicule. He might throw all ethics to the winds and lull himself into the belief that he has arrived at the truth. He might even hide his skeptic head, ostrich-like, in a mass of dialectical verbiage, in a vain attempt to escape the concepts of the dull-witted worldlings. Such whiskers are haunted and bored by those very concepts the moment they peep out, or maybe even before that, for the simple reason that the paradoxes true of the emancipated sage are not true of them. The purpose of developing a dialectical consciousness is not to play intellectual hide-and-seek, but to be alive to the unsound facts of experience within and without oneself. Hence, the dialectician has to realize the fact that he is at the mercy of concepts even in his dialectical attempts to demolish concepts. This chastening thought should humble him all the more and prod him to transcend them with whatever tools they are within his reach. A dream may be proved false in the light of waking experience, but all the same, it is relatively true as a fact of experience. Similarly, the deluding character of concepts is a fact of experience and must not be ignored on that account. Concepts, for all their vicious potency to delude us, are not to be blamed per se, for they are merely objectifications or projections of our own tanha, mana and ditti, our cravings, our conceit, and our wills. Hence, in the last analysis, concepts have to be tackled at their source. They are not so much to be demolished as to be comprehended and transcended. The attempt to dislodge concepts at the purely intellectual level leads to infinite regress in thought, as will be evident from the following dialogue between the Buddha and the wandering ascetic Tiganaka.
Yeah, one moment. So actually the topic that various concepts, that we are using various concepts in the typical mundane world, and that is how we are dealing with the others, communicate with the others. So actually that is what we are using to think. Actually we can't think without concepts. So whatever we start with, now say for example as a human being, as an infant, when we are born, so we are introduced to a world which is filled with concepts which are already accepted as the norm of the world, and our mother, our father introduce those norms to us, telling, okay, this is father, this is mother, this is your brother, this is your sister, this is your grandmother, this is your grandfather. So likewise, we are introduced to various individuals. And again, then various objects are also introduced to us. Okay, this is your doll, this is your bat, this is your vehicle, this is your little, a kind of a cloth. So likewise, so various objects are also introduced to us. And that is what we are further enhancing during our college time or during our university time. So more and more concepts are the ones actually we are learning. So we are then learning various grammatical stuff and languages, sentences, terms, certain grammar, etc., etc. So all that ultimately, anyway, we can come to everything as concepts. Now, this conceptual world is what we are born to, and this is what we are introduced to, and with which actually we are growing up. And now immediately we can't deny it, telling all these are false or all these things are empty, there is no essence. So completely denying them seems to be a kind of a very radical and maybe unacceptable, kind of a forceful kind of an attempt. But Buddha, on the other hand, uses the concepts properly in a skillful way. But ultimately, all the concepts may be abandoned, but in a gradual way, not immediately, but making use of the concepts to ultimately abandon the same concepts. Say, for example, when we are practicing Anapanasati, so we take in-breath as a concept, out-breath as a concept, and maybe we tell, okay, my mind wandered towards the past, wandered towards the future, and I feel certain amount of pain, I feel dizzy. So all these things are actually we accept as typical, acceptable, realistic experience. And we maybe even use certain words during our practice. When we experience in breath, probably we are noting it as in. When we are experiencing out breath, we may be noting it as out. If we are experiencing rising of the abdomen, probably we note it as rising. When we are experiencing falling, probably we note it as falling. So we are even using the terms, words, etc. as a kind of a mechanism, as an aid to our practice. But later, probably you may understand it is not necessary. Now mind is capable of maintaining a very quiet mind, and there is no any need of further entertaining any rough conventional type of concepts. So I can keep them all aside. So now let the mind become completely calm, relaxed, concentrated, and let that concentrated mind start observing various phenomena with their fair precision. So now the various phenomena, maybe bodily phenomena, maybe external phenomena, all that are also slowly lose their compact form, and they also disintegrate and come to a fairly transient states, and we can't even name them. We can't even label them. So ultimately we can understand, okay, even the concepts at that level are abandoned now. Now everything happened in a gradual way. That is the important thing I like to highlight. So it is not a forceful abandonment. Rather, as a result of our practice, slowly the concepts are gradually abandoned. It happened as a progress of our practice. And we don't need to forcefully establish concepts either. But again, we don't need to demolish them forcefully either. Let the practice slowly take care of them. Ultimately, all the concepts are naturally, gradually abandoned. Now mind become completely quiet, very concentrated, quite relaxed, calm. So such a state is possible. It may be possible during your walking meditation. It may be possible during your sitting meditation. And if you are skillful, probably it might happen even while you are paying attention to daily activities. How the mind can work without concepts. So concepts are there to make a kind of a purpose, and we can understand that as well. And we are not against the concept. When it is necessary, we can make use of concepts, knowing they are merely concepts. So therefore, a practitioner is a skillful person. When it is necessary, he can make use of the concepts, but knowing their limitations, knowing that they are mere conventions, that they are mere concepts. Intrinsically, there is no core, no essence in them, but they are merely names, conventions, labels, and maybe joining things together and giving a name. So all that ultimately are the concepts that man has prepared, man has made. So if we know that properly, thoroughly, then we don't have to have a kind of a reaction towards them. Actually, we can make use of them, but ultimately we can abandon them as well. So kind of a skillful way of handling them, as Katakurunda Thero mentioning that. So the yogi, the practitioner, is a skillful person. He is using the concepts, ultimately abandon them. Okay, someone, we can further continue the reading.
Yeah, Bhante. I, good Gautama, speak thus, arm of this weave, all is not pleasing to me. This weave of yours, Agivesana, all is not pleasing to me. Does this weave of yours not please you? If this weave were pleasing to me, good Gautama, this would be like it too. This would be like it too. Now, Agivesana, when those, the majority in the world, speak thus, this would be like it too, this would be like it too, they do not get rid of that very weave, and they take up another weave. Now, Agivesana, when those, the minority in the world, speak thus, this would be like it too, this would be like it too, they get rid of that very weave and do not take up another weave. The Buddha, however, granted that Diganaka's weave is nearer detachment when compared with its opposite weave. All is pleasing to me. Diganaka, for a moment, was elated, thinking that the Buddha was praising and upholding his weave without reserve. But he was disillusioned when the Buddha went on to show how the very dogmatic weave, that all weaves are unacceptable, can itself give rise to suffering. As to this, Agivesana, those recluses and Brahmins who speak thus and are of this weave, all is not pleasing to me. If a learned man be there who reflects thus, if I were to express this weave of mine that all is not pleasing to me, and obstinately holding to it and adhering to it, were to say, this is the very truth, all else is falsehood, there would be for me dispute with two weave holders, both with whatever recluse of the Brahmin who speak thus and is of this weave, all is pleasing to me, and with whatever recluse or Brahmins who speak thus and is of this weave, part is pleasing to me, part is not pleasing to me. There would be a dispute for me with these two. If there is dispute, there's contention. If there is contention, there is trouble. If there is trouble, there is vexation. So he, beholding this dispute and contention and trouble and vexation for himself, gets rid of that very weave and does not take up another weave. Thus is the getting rid of these weaves, thus is the casting away of these weaves. Incidentally, this dialogue is of refreshing relevance in view of certain misconceptions among modern philosophers who overestimate the value of dialectics. One might do well to compare it with the observations by Dr. T. R. V. Murthy in his defense of the Madhyamika system, the central philosophy of Buddhism. The dialectic, as sunyata, is the removal of the constrictions which are concepts, with their practical or sentimental bias, have put on reality. It is the freeing of reality of the artificial and accidental restrictions, and not the denial of reality. Sunyata is negation of negations. It is thus a reaffirmation of the infinite and inexpressibly positive character of the real. Criticism of theories is no theory. Criticism is but the awareness of what a theory is, how it is made up. It is not the proposing of a new theory. Negation of positions is not one more position. Dialectic as analysis does not impose any new thing. It reveals rather than add or distort. The conflict of opposed theories and standpoints is resolved in the Madhyamika by analyzing each theory and exhibiting its inner flow. The dialectic dissolves theories without residue. It does not precipitate another theory. Criticism is deliverance of the human mind from all entanglements and passions. It is freedom itself. This is the true Madhyamika standpoint. We are afraid that this picture of the dialectic is somewhat overdrawn. Such a complacent attitude towards the omnipotence of the dialectic is not without its dangers. This fact is revealed in certain strands of thought in the Madhyamika system itself. A typical illustration of the regression in thought may be seen in the series of repeated negations which were supposed to be culminate in absolute voidness. Ayatana Sunyata.
No,
There was
Atyanta Sunyata. Sorry, Atyanta Sunyata.
Atyanta Sunyata. There was also a tendency to hypostatize the abstract of concepts of Sunyata and make it an absolute, some eternal principle from which everything comes out and to which everything ultimately returns. As regards this latter trend, it is significant that in the Chula Sunyata Sutta, the Buddha emphasizes, though in a very matter-of-fact tone, that Sunyata is as much a relative term as any other. Hence, a dual introspective analysis for the ascertaining the experimental data of which one's mind is void and of which one's mind is not void is seen to precede.
Sorry, experiential data.
Sorry, one
second. Chula Sunyata Sutta, Buddha emphasizes.
Yeah. Sorry, Mante. Yeah. Hence, a dual introspective analysis for the ascertaining the experiential data of which one's mind is void and of which one's mind is not void is seen to precede the determination of each stage of experience of voidness. The recurrent phrase, he regards that which is not there as empty of it, but in regard to what remains there. He comprehends, this is because it is, brings out this criterion in simple terms. The criterion holds good even for the highest stage of the experience of voidness, Paramanuttara Sunyatavakhanti, described in the Sutta. At this stage, the mind is void of cankers of sense desires, existence and ignorance, but there is still a fact of experience which is not void, namely the painful physical experiences that might arise due to the fact that one is living. So then, there is no necessity to hypostatize the concept of sunyata, instead of restoring to an absolutist conception of voidness by confusing the three pathways of conventional usage regarding temporal notions. One must be realistic enough to recognize the present as present, the past as the past, and the future as the future. The stages of voidness would thereby harmonize with the levels of experience.
Yeah, one moment. Now, if I come back to the Chula Sunyata Sutta, probably I might have already mentioned you that in the context of that sutta, so the point is in a way kind of straightforward. Say, for example, what Buddha mentioned there is that while he was at Migaramatupada, the mention of the Migara, so with the monks, and he highlight that here we are lack of any people, we are lack of any cows, animals, maybe horses, maybe elephants, kings, queens, none of them are here. So this is not the city. So we are in the forest, we are at the Migaramatu Pasada. So therefore, what he want to highlight is now this Migaramadu is empty of such city-related matters. All the politics, all the kingdom-related ethics, or maybe rules, regulations, elephants on those days, elephants, horses, all that are now empty because we are in the Migaramatu Pasada. But here we still have monks here. So it is not empty of monks. So the point he highlight, as Venerable Katukunda Jnananda Thero points out, is the sunyata is a relative term where the Migaramadu is empty of elephants, horses, kings, queens, people, etc. But it is not empty of monks. Now later he emphasized, okay, now assume that the monk who is practicing, now he's trying to put his attention to the body, maybe the Patavi Dhatu. Now he's putting attention to the body. Now as he concentrates his mind more and more to the body, now his mind is empty of the city-related items. That means kings, queens, ministers, people, maybe elephants, horses, all that are also not there. Similarly, the forest-related Migaramatu Pasada, that mention-related stuff are also not there. That is also empty. But it is not empty of the bodily phenomena. Now assume that the mind is established on various elements. Now it is not empty of those elements. So the point highlighted there is it's a kind of a gradual transcendence of various phenomena, abandoning all unnecessary burden of many phenomena and paying attention to the selected phenomena. And now the mind is not empty of that selected phenomena because it is already paying attention to that. It is not empty of that. But a vast majority of many phenomena are abandoned, so it is empty of those vast majority of phenomena. So it's a kind of a gradual achievement of sunyata, gradual achievement of emptiness in the mind. And Buddha applies it to the very best type of sunyata, that is when one becomes completely free from any influxes, shinasrava, all the influxes are abandoned, all the fetters are abandoned, all the asavas are abandoned. So there is no any, suffering, any kind of a restriction, any aberration coming because of the kama asava. The sensual lust, because of the sensual lust, there is a kind of aberration to the mind, a friction to the mind. Now it is not there. It is empty of that. It is empty of that suffering. Similarly, bhavasava is also not there when one becomes an arahant. So it is empty of that also. And avijjasava is also not there. So if there is any kind of an aberration, if there is any kind of a mental friction, which is happening because of the avijjasava, that is also not there. It is also empty. But as Katukunda Thero highlight, but still we have the living body. Since we have the living body, so we are not empty of that. Because of the living body, we may have to go through certain amount of friction. Probably we may hear noise, probably we can see various sights, we may smell bad smells, taste, tangibles, all are there because the senses are operating. So the body is living. Because of this living body, we may have to bear certain amount of friction. So it is not empty of that. So sometimes people, as Katukunda Thero points out, we are dogmatically sometimes take the sunyata as a kind of a state which has to be comprehended, which has to be dogmatically understood, some special theory. So rather than thinking like that, so if we think it's a kind of a gradual achievement, a type of an experience, how one is gradually empty in the mind, how one is gradually letting go of various phenomena, how one is detaching from various phenomena. So more and more mind become free, mind become detached, mind become empty, unattached, unestablished. So that is the path. So what Venerable Jnananda highlighting here, so rather than saying all the concepts are unnecessary, all are empty, all are void, so one can make use of them and achieve the gradual emptiness, a kind of a relative emptiness. During the path, anyway, the concepts are also made use of. ultimately that also abandoned. Ultimately that also has gone away. And now the mind is quite capable of maintaining itself without any attachment, without any dependency. Anisitocha viharati. So the mind is detached. Mind is not dependent on anything. It's a kind of a free mind, independent mind, detached mind. So likewise, the gradual emptiness is something that we have to aim at. And the Chulasundita Sutta gives us a very interesting approach to that. So rather than taking it too serious and rather than taking it a very theoretical way, so one has to look at from a very practical way, as Buddha pointing out using some simple similes. So if we understand that simple simile, it's a matter of gradually emptying the mind, making the mind more and more clear, cleansed, empty, gradually. Ultimately, even when one becomes an arahant who achieves the ultimate type of sunyata, paramanuttara sunyata vakkanti, when one enters that most supreme type of emptiness, there also something is not empty. Now the mind is completely empty of all the asavas, all the influxes are not there. So it is empty of that. And similarly, there may be a friction coming when the asavas are present. Since asavas are not present, these all are abandoned. Now that friction is also not there. And there may be certain perceptions, sanya, marks coming because when the asavas are present. But when asavas are not there, all those perceptions are also not there. All those perceptions are also empty in the mind now. But since the living body is available, there is still certain amount of friction available. So that's a very interesting point highlighted in the Chulasundita Sutta by the Buddha. So rather than sort of sought after any kind of a very pristine, very precise, very accurate, almost like unconscious type of experience, it's a matter of very gradual achievement of the emptiness in the mind. More and more the mind becomes empty of the defilements. Ultimately, when one becomes an arahant, the mind is free from all the influxes, any kind of friction coming of the influxes, all of that is abandoned. Now the mind is empty of that. But because of the living body, there is still certain amount of suffering that we may have to bear. Okay, with that, I like to conclude today's book reading, this Concept and Reality book. Now I like to open the session for questions.
අවසරයි ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ.
Yeah.
Today we have 5 questions.
Yes.
First question is, Dear Bhante, my question is regarding some practical application of what we have learned from the Concept and Reality book based Dhamma talks, especially around Prapancha. I think we can use this understanding to come out of many difficult situations, even at work. I had one staff member becoming very disgruntled recently without much facts and substances for his frustration. I could clearly understand how the prapancha and the manifold effect Bhante explained working in this scenario. Rather than advising and trying to correct the other person, I could actually empathize with the whole scenario and be patient and composed. If I can use mindfulness practice to see how prapancha work in me, it should be the same for someone else, so I can avoid reacting to their agitations. This seems more closer to practical application than contemplating as the actions driven by lobha, desha, moha. Appreciate if Bhante can clarify a bit more on how mindfulness and conceptual proliferation Dhamma can be used to make day-to-day lives better. Much merits for your teaching. Metta, that is the end of the question.
Yeah, thank you for sending that question. So as you clearly pointed out, so when we understand how our minds are tends to proliferate, how our minds are getting on to some unnecessary overthinking, the same is common to the other people. So when they go through certain situation, when they go through certain experience, so they also tend to go through unnecessary thinking, overthinking, obsessive thinking, conceptual proliferation, all that is common to them as well. So if we know about our mind, if we have gone through some amount of observation about the workings of our mind, then we can actually develop fair amount of empathy towards the others. Because that is how the empathy is developing because of the mindfulness practice. Because we understand about how ourselves are suffering, how our body behaves, how it is suffering sometimes, and how our mind behaves, and how emotions are popping up, and how we sometimes become enslaved to them, and how these things are further dissolved, and ultimately we can be mindful about all those different emotions. And if we have some very good mindfulness, fair amount of clear comprehension, then probably we can touch certain amount of a clarity of the mind, complete freedom of proliferation, and we have certain taste of both sides then. Unfortunately, others, if they are not practicing, they don't have such capacity, so they continue to suffer, they continue to proliferate, they continue to go through overthinking. By looking at that, so we can be somewhat empathic towards them, and we can be compassionate towards them, because we know how we suffered. And even now we can suffer because in case if we are unmindful. So similarly, knowing the true nature, proper nature, how things are happening and how the proliferation is taking fair amount of impact towards one's mind. So you become very empathetic towards the other person. And also unnecessarily, you are also not participating into their activities. You don't want to interrupt. You don't want to sometimes advise if they are not in a better mood, if they are not in a better position to understand what we are trying to tell. But in case if they invite us, if they ask us, of course, then we can advise, we can give indication, we can invite them to practice. All that are possible. So as you pointed out, so we have to be patient. By the way, know what's the kind of suffering the other person is going through, how they are obsessively thinking, how it is harmful. But till time comes, we also have to wait without interrupting him. Because in case if we become anxious, if we become impatient, then we might lose the opportunity altogether because we become emotional. But if we are able to handle ourselves, and basically this is emotional intelligence, to understand our emotions, to understand the other person's emotions, and properly manage them without making things complex or vulnerable. Rather, we understand the other person's situation, we can read their emotions, and we can navigate through that properly. And we can even help to him because we have the emotional intelligence. So we can say emotional intelligence is part of the practice. So it is a product of the practice. So as we develop the Satipatthana practice, emotional intelligence also have to develop, because we understand ourselves and then we can understand the others as well.
Okay. Second questions out of 5. Dear Bhante, are there any sutta or explanations about experiencing and abiding in the void by directly practicing Anapanasati, breathing mindfulness meditation? In the last Dhamma sermon, it explained Patavi Sanya, Aka Sanyayatana Sanya, etc. Are these higher concentration meditation which are beyond breathing practice? With metta, that is the end of the question.
Yeah, I mean, so Akasananchayatana, all that we can say it's beyond typical Anapanasati. But anyway, if you are practicing Anapanasati, you can reach emptiness. Say, for example, in the Chittanupassana section of the Anapanasati, Buddha mentioned, Vimochayan Chitta Asasisamiti Sikkati. So you are now practicing liberating the mind, freeing the mind. You can read the Chittanupassana section. So there Buddha starts with Chitta Patisangedi Asasisamiti Sikkati. So you become mindful about the mind. So how thoughts are coming, how thoughts are behaving, how thoughts are disappearing. So all that you start understanding while you are paying attention to the mind. Chitta Patisangedi Asasisamiti Sikkati. Then Abhipamodayan Chittang Asasisamiti Sikkati. Where you become gladdened because now you are not driven by the thoughts. thoughts are merely thoughts. You don't need to worry about them. You don't need to be responsible about them. You understand they are to come and go. Slowly, so you become somewhat separated from that, and you don't need to claim them, and you become relieved because you understand their true nature. Abhipamodayan chittang asasissamiti sikkati. Then vimochayan chittang asasissamiti sikkati. Where you understand, okay, now I can free the mind. I don't need to keep all this with me. I don't need to get burdened by these various thoughts, mental states. They have the nature to arise and pass away. So let them pass away. I don't need to purposely arouse anything, any thought. So let the mind be free. So we promote the freedom in the mind. So this freedom of the mind is actually a pathway to emptiness. We can say now the mind is not taking any nimitta, not taking any signs. So mind is very free. And again, objectless. There is no object either, no thoughts either, no perceptions either. So mind becomes more and more empty. So the Anapanasati also paves the way for emptiness. So the achieving emptiness is a gradual process, as I already mentioned, and there may be many paths available. Anapanasati is one of them.
Third question out of 6. This is a general question. Dear Venerable Sir, can you explain the difference between Appamana Cheto Vimukti based on Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekka and Mahaggata Cheto Vimukti? I found this in Anuruddha Sutta, but I cannot relate to what we know. Much merits for your service. That's the end of the question.
Yeah, probably you have heard about the Brahma Vihara, Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekka. So let me take only one, say the Metta, for example, since it is quite familiar to us. Say first, probably you are paying Metta to yours. May I be well, may I be happy, may I be free from suffering. It's a very limited practice where you as an individual present and pay attention to yourself and you wish happiness towards yourself. And maybe you can consider someone else is in front of you and you can refer him and also you can wish, may he be well, may he be happy, may he be free from suffering. So likewise, there's a limitation towards our practice. So there may be myself, there may be another person, maybe a group of people, a group of certain beings. So likewise, our metta practice is limited at that time. Now slowly assume that you are slowly growing this, expanding this. Okay, may all the human beings in this world be happy. May they be free from suffering. May they attain Nibbana or something like that. You wish for the whole humankind. So now your mind is expanding. That is one level. On the other hand, may all beings, now there are no limitations, there are no categorizations. May all beings be well and happy. Now there again the mind is getting open and there is no limit. Apana is now getting up. You are getting closer to that. On the other hand, you are using the directions. In the front direction, all the beings in the front direction, may they be well, may they be happy. May all beings in the right direction, may they all be happy. May all beings in the high direction, the behind, let them be happy. May all beings in the left direction, may all be happy. So likewise, you are now expanding towards all the directions. Ultimately, all 6 directions, all 10 directions can be included. And you become very much like a source of metta, like the sun, emanating light towards all the directions. Similarly, your mind become kind of a source of metta, spreading metta towards everyone, everybody, every direction. Now we say, so we have achieved the Cheto Vimutti, what we call the Metta Cheto Vimutti. Metta Cheto Vimutti, one type of Appamana Cheto Vimutti, limitless type of liberation of the mind. Now, because now mind has no limit, there is no any categorization, no any preference. So all the beings in all the directions are include and your mind become limitless. Appamana Cheto Vimutti. So likewise, you can do the same thing for compassion, the karuna, mudita, upekha. So what is the other one referred in the question?
Swaminathan, can you please explain the difference between Appamana Cheto Vimukti based on Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekka and Mahagata Cheto Vimukti?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mahagata Cheto Vimutti is quite different. So you can say it is the, what we call the jhana, particularly the fourth jhana. In the fourth jhana, there is a ability to, what we call, abandon all the happiness and suffering. So the stock phrase for fourth jhana, you already abandon the happiness and the suffering. Sukha and dukkha are already abandoned. Because our mind become limited when the suffering is there or the happiness is there. We like happiness, we reject suffering. So mind becomes somewhat constricted. But when one achieves the fourth jhana, what we call upekha cheto vimutti, rather what we call adukkama sukha cheto vimutti. Adukkama sukha cheto vimutti is very much, I feel, what we are referring as the mahagata cheto vimutti, where the jhanic practice, particularly the fourth jhana, when it achieves the fourth jhana level, so there is no suffering, there is no happiness either. So the mind becomes fully equanimous. So any limitations coming because of the happiness and suffering, happiness or unhappiness, so that duality is abandoned. Now mind become completely equanimous. So in that point, it is called the adukkama sukha cheto vimutti. But I can't remember exactly the mahagata cheto vimutti, but I am referring adukkama sukha cheto vimutti, may be very similar. So mahagata chitta also refers to the jhana chitta, kind of a highly concentrated mind. So in such case, mind can abandon suffering and happiness, that means happiness and unhappiness, when it achieves the jhana. It is called the adukkama sukha cheto vimutti.
Fourth question out of 6. Dear Bhante, what is Kasina meditation? There are many sutta highlighting this meditation, thus thought of asking. With metta, that is the end of the question.
Yeah, kasina are there. 10 types of kasinas are there. Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu, the elements kasina. Then red, blue, red, yellow, blue, and white. So those are the Nila, Pita, Lohita, Odata. So they are the color kasina. And then there's another 2, space kasina and the light kasina, Akasa and Aloka. So these are the 10 kasina typically explained in the path of purification, Visuddhi Magga. And you need kasina practice to achieve the arupa jhana. So you can't achieve arupa jhana using anapana sati. You need kasina to achieve it in the samatha practice.
Fifth question out of 6. This is a general question. Dear Bhante, is there a concept of time in Buddhism? In the Bhaddekara Sutta, Buddha says not to live in past, present or future. Is time a conventional truth and not an ultimate truth? Thank you, Bhante. That is the end of the question.
Yes, you are correct. So it is considered as a kind of a conventional truth. And Buddha also used it. And he asked, okay, don't dwell in the past, don't linger in the future. So be in the present. So it is highlighted in the Bhaddekaratta Sutta. Atitan nanvagamiya nappatikanki anagatam. Yadatitam pahinantam appattancha anagatam. So don't dwell in the past because it has already gone. It has happened. And don't distracted or agitated because of the future because it hasn't come yet. Paccupannanca dhamman tata tata vipassate. So try to be in the present moment and understand how the present moment phenomena are operating, how they are behaving. So that is the vipassana practice particularly highlighted. So conventionally, Buddha accepts, Buddha makes use of these concepts, as we already discussed. So Buddha is not against these concepts, but he properly make use of them so that our mind can be further developed.
Last question. Most respected Bhante, could you please explain the relationship between Sanya and concept, please? Much merits, Thero Saranai. That is the end of the question.
Yeah, actually there is a huge combination or relationship between these two. The Sanya, when we are talking of the typical Sanya Khanda, typically translated it as perceptions, the aggregate of perceptions. But actually in the Buddhist point of view, it is not merely perceptions. We can say even little a sign which is operating in the mind, which is happening in the mind, are also taken as the sanya. So therefore, sanya is a very broad term, including all the signs, all the marks happening in the mind, and it is not only the mental signs, but also the sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, visuals, all that actually we recognize through their signs. Now, all those signs later can arise in the mind, then we can consider them as all the sanya. So, rupa sanya are there, saddha sanya, gandha sanya, rasa sanya, pottabha sanya, dhamma sanya. So, therefore, there are 6 categories of sanya in broad explained in the Dhamma. So, all comes under the sanya khanda. But after operating with the sanya, after recognizing the sanya, you start thinking, you start pondering about them. You can come to a particular view, particular perception. So particularly these perceptions are also considered in the sanya khanda. So therefore broadly, all the little signs, little marks, identifications, in the sense the identification marks what we are using to recognize something or someone, and all the perceptions developing in the mind are also included in the sanya khanda. Now, on the other hand, conventions. So those conventions are mind-made or man-made ones. Actually, we can prepare a convention. Now, say for example, we write, we can draw a circle, and then we can all say, okay, this is the circle. This is what we call as a circle. And probably we can draw a triangle, and then we can introduce to the others, and we can teach them, okay, this is what we call the triangle. Now, these are all conventions. And we learn it from someone, and then we impose it to the others, we introduce them to the others, and they also are expected to believe it, accept it, follow it. And that is how conventions are again and again established, again and again further maintained. So these are mind-made, or rather, these are man-made conventions. So for the better, smooth operation of the society, so as human beings, we have introduced so much of conventions. And all these have certain amount of relationship with the sanya, by the way. We need to recognize the conventions. So sanya is also has part of it. But conventions are conventions, they are different from sanya. Even though sanya plays a pivotal role there, anyway, conventions are different.
That was the last question, Bhante. We have about another 10 minutes. Is it okay to open the session for the audience, Bhante?
Yeah, we can open for 5 minutes then.
Yeah. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, then I will unmute. Seems no questions, Bhante.
Right.
So we come to the end of today's session. And I would first like to thank Bhante for his valuable time. We would also like to pass our merits to everyone, both seen and unseen, who is enabling this program, and to all the participants for joining it. With that, I would like to conclude the program today. Thero Saranai.
Yeah, Thero Saranai.